Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations on Sex, Addiction, and Relationships. I'm Tim Stein, and I'm joined, as always, with my friends and colleagues on this podcast, Jeannie Vitoni, Wendy Conquest, and Dan Drake. Today, I have no idea where this conversation is going to go, but today we're going to talk about cheating and infidelity. Not a how-to, just clarifying that, but cheating and infidelity, and how does that show up, impact? Are there signs?
Yep. So I'm really glad we're talking about this because we all specialize in sex addiction and betrayal trauma, and those terms are pretty specialized terms. But at the end of the day, when you're in a committed relationship, or you think you're in a committed relationship, and you find out that the other person has been sexual with somebody else, the general term for that is cheating. They've cheated in the relationship. So,
Can I back up? Sorry, Wendy.
yeah,
We're
no,
talking
go
about
ahead.
definitions.
Right, that's
Is it just
exactly.
Yeah.
is it just when someone's been sexual with somebody else that
I,
cheating happens?
I always think
That,
about Rob Weiss and his definition
Yeah.
of infidelity, which is keeping significant sexual secrets from your romantic partner. And
great clarification.
so, we could limit it to only crossing the flesh barrier, to use your term, Wendy.
Yeah.
But, I've also seen a lot of partners that have been deeply, deeply wounded when that flesh barrier wasn't crossed, but other sexual boundaries were.
So can we start the conversation with how does someone say, oh my gosh, he or she is cheating on me? Because that it could be they're secretly watching porn or they're secretly on dating apps or so how does somebody say to themselves like like a self-affirmation, oh my gosh, I believe that my partner's cheating.
Wouldn't there be, I would think that like to Tim's definition or Robert Weiss's definition that Tim you just said, wouldn't there be something about either a disclosure or discovery of some kind or intuition that suspects something and then there's maybe backed up with I feel like there's going to be something that was secret is now less secret or becomes not a secret anymore. I feel like that would be the starting point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that oftentimes it might be, if you've got enough, if it doesn't feel overwhelmingly scary, I think that the other piece would be, and then I go talk to people I trust. Hey, this is happening, and I think this is cheating, it's you know, help me think through this. Is my perception skewed? Am I being overly reactive, or am I not being reactive enough?
Well, I think also in certain circumstances, um, the person that is being cheated on is the last to know.
Yeah.
That a lot of people in the community, in the religious organization, that they know. But
Friends, family members, like community members.
right.
Or no one knows.
Well, I'm just saying that sometimes that other people do know. And just to follow up on what Tim was saying, if they go to other people and say, hey, I think this is happening, hopefully those people say, well, I didn't want to tell you, but yeah,
I think it's so hard because back to the individualized nature of each relationship. What is and so many couples don't talk about this. Where's the line that this is I don't want to say approved, but an okay behavior between the two of us, and then that's the threshold, you just crossed it and now it's not okay. A lot of couples will have a very obvious sexual physical contact, but the other parts I think are so nuanced and individualized. And I guess I'm kind of like in my mind already like, okay, have a conversation with your person.
But and I don't disagree with Jeannie, but I'm also thinking of at least the clients, the men I've worked with, they may have an overt conversation, but the person they're going to find loopholes, or they're going to sort of, obfuscate things.
I wasn't going into compulsive behaviors in
right. So that's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
right,
I'm in like the infidelity crowd where it's not necessarily
what's okay for us as a couple.
What's okay for us? What works for us? where
Well,
where a pattern hasn't yet been established, where a gaslighting and complete manipulation may be
Right.
happening.
So be clear with each other from the outset
Be
of
clear.
what
Yeah,
we're
it's
okay
kind
with.
of like that conversation when you're dating. You know, what's sexuality for you? What's your sexual history?
well,
Where's appropriate emotional friendships or not?
and not
Because I
just
think
be
people
clear up
attach
front,
things.
but I think also probably be clear as you go along, because it may be that, hey, this is the agreement we had, and I thought it was going to be fine, but I'm realizing that this doesn't feel comfortable to me, and I need to circle back and talk about this and what we want to do with
Absolutely.
that, because I didn't realize it, but this is really impacted me in a way that surprised me or blindsided me.
Sure, absolutely. Keeping that conversation open and updating it as the relationship goes along, to allow for someone having different friends, but in a transparent way, not secretive. I think
So,
it, yeah.
yeah, so let's say that the person's finds out that their partner is what they determine is cheating.
Mhm.
What do they do then?
Which the person who is learning this or the person who was doing it?
Both.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? Because both I would say for something to move along, both people have to agree that it's cheating. So let's say, meeting an old girlfriend for lunch
Mm-hmm.
numerous times. And I say old girlfriend because there was a relationship there before.
Mm-hmm.
And one person says, I don't like that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And the
Mm-hmm.
other person says, well, you're just insecure.
Mm-hmm.
That's your problem. You're insecure. There's nothing happening here. You just have to work on your own self-esteem and be more confident in yourself to know to then and be able to trust me.
And
Mm-hmm.
I guess I go there, maybe, but then if there was a discovery of this, why was it hidden and why was it
Yeah.
secretive in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
That concerns me.
Well, I think it
If it was
also,
like, hey, I know it might be strange, but I have a relationship, a friendship. My old ex-girlfriend and we have a friendship, and there's nothing there, but we can meet her and feel safe and comfortable, and we just sometimes meet for lunch. Like if
Mm-hmm.
that's a discussion ahead of time, okay. But that
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't sound like that's what's happening, Wendy. So now it feels like there's some gaslighting going on,
well, I
which
think that what
concerns
you're
me.
talking about is that we're talking about different kinds of people. I mean, are we talking about somebody who wandered into an affair or chose to have an affair, but is really committed to the relationship, is recognizing that it's a mistake, and they're like, oh my goodness, and how do I step in and heal this? Versus somebody who's like, hey, I'm choosing to do this. I really don't care if it impacts you. And, and okay, you discovered it. I don't know that I really want to change. I think about there was a clinician I was talking to who had a bunch of women in her office that were having affairs. And when the husband discovered it, their response, and it was like two or three in a row, which is why it really stood out to this clinician in the conversation. The women's response was basically, I'm done with the marriage. I found somebody that I really am involved with, and I'm not even going to put any energy into this. I'm moving on, and I'm going to get involved in a relationship with my affair partner. So it's really sort of like, what kind of response is the person who's having the affair? How are they leaning in when it gets discovered or when they disclose it? And the person who's having and the person who has discovered it, or for some people they discover it's like, I discovered it and that's done. I'm finished. I'm out of here. And other people discover it and they're like, what's going on? You know, how do we heal this? This may be hard and painful, but I want to try to make this work if we can. And it's gonna be different for different people.
Well, and what I'm hearing is for the person that's doing whatever behavior it is that's bothering the other, for them to be really honest with themselves.
Yeah.
To say, okay, I'm meeting with this person, why? Why am I meeting with my old girlfriend? Or, why am I having coffee once a week with this particular person? Is it purely platonic on my part or not? And I don't know if it's fair to say, is it platonic on the other, on who they're meeting, because that's projecting
Too
a
far.
little far out. Yeah. But if they are, how do I say, if they're getting something out, like if the other person is complimenting them all the time or making sexual innuendos all the time, they're like, well, I'm the one meeting them for coffee. They're the ones that are, kind of, and they're just joking. They're just kidding around. They're not serious. But then the relationship partner is picking up on that and saying, this doesn't feel right.
And that's where it is. And for my mind, that's where it is. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel comfortable. And in my mind, that's the point where this stop, everybody stop. What's going on? What's secret? What's transparent? What feels right for us? What do we want to create in our relationship? And I don't feel comfortable. Will you stop? That's a big piece, an indicator right there. The expression of this isn't okay with me. And hopefully the other person hears that and says, you know what? You're my most important person, and I want you to feel most comfortable. So I'm going to do that differently or stop that altogether because you're my person. That's
That's
what I
something
want to hear.
yeah, I was thinking that, Jeannie, like having some humility, the person that the cheater we'll call in this situation. I think if they're committed to the relationship, they have to have some humility, because if there's cheating and there's a discovery, to me there's betrayal, whether we're talking sex addiction or infidelity,
Right.
a one-time thing or multiple instances, there's still going to be betrayal, which
Mhm.
means there's potentially betrayal trauma either way. The person's probably going to need to understand what the scope is. There's going to be a lot of questions and
Mhm.
response to it, and lack of safety, and we have to rebuild trust again. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be involved either way.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, even under a guest best case scenario. So I think and I think that the betrayed person getting support, having resources, getting, I don't know, support from other people who might save people who would be able to kind of be there, whatever that looks like. That's such a tough one, but that's, I think, so important. Not trying to hold this themselves.
I've been having this conversation with a lot of clients recently. When I hear certain dynamics, and then I'm confused, and I'll say, so what is your relationship agreement?
Mhm.
But I'm not clear on what the two of you have said is okay or not okay. And then they have pause and are like, well, maybe we don't really have an agreement. Okay, well, then if you don't have any agreements, then if when problems come up, there's confusion on whether there's a problem or not. But there is, because you haven't set any foundation.
I've also had people that have felt pressured into agreements that they don't actually feel okay with, and I've been I'll just say, like, I guess contracted or hired, or someone finds me to basically tell the one person that this is a problem and this agreement isn't okay. I've had people try to have me play that role for them, but that's hard. I mean, if you feel bullied or pressured into something, an agreement, maybe there's an agreement, but you don't feel, you feel kind of uh, I don't know, emotionally held hostage or pressured into something that doesn't feel safe. To me, that's a problem. That shouldn't be the way we do this.
I'm coming to the part where if not agreements under duress, or agreements because I didn't feel strong enough in assert, or agreements that just weren't present. And that's, I think, where the hard part is with gaslighting. When someone tries to explain their perspective, is that them truly explaining their perspective, or is that manipulation, gaslighting? And sometimes it's the same words, which makes it super hard for the betrayed to determine, am I getting the line? Is this a bunch of smoke and mirrors? Or is this what they really believe? And again, I'm saying this not in a sex addiction context, but more of a infidelity kind of thing. But so hard for betrayed to know, wait, is this false narrative or is this truth? And we have to work it out and create that agreement. Do you
To
see what I'm
me,
saying?
on that, like, that's huge. Sorry, Jeannie.
Yeah, go for it.
Do we have gaslighting without Darvo? I think the
Don't
key
get me
thing,
started on Darvo. I got a
I
whole.
know, we won't go into that. It's the whole thing, but I just, if I think the pattern would be different if someone's explaining a perspective. It's more, there's maybe a mutuality. If the difference, if with Darvo, and we can go that another time, but basically
Well, can
is
you define Darvo?
Darvo is
Defend,
Fried
attack.
as a term. It's an
De-
acronym from Jennifer
Defend,
Fried.
attack, reverse victim offender.
Yeah, well, deny or defend, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender role. So basically, the person who, you confront your partner about something, and but maybe I have this situation, you confront somebody, and by the end of that, because you're hurt, by the end of the situation, you're the one apologizing for whatever. So you shifted from being the hurt person to now being the perpetrator. That dynamic's playing out in gaslighting. So do you find yourself, is the other person always being the victim in a scenario? To me, that's going to be a problem. And you're the perpetrator, you're the problem. Like that on the betrayed side is, to me, that'd be really concerning.
But back to the gaslighting. I'm glad you bring that up because I think one of the things that is happening out there right now is that there are some people that view anybody who says, I don't agree with you,
It's gaslighting, right?
and that is interpreted as gaslighting.
And it's hard to know. It's
True.
hard to know when you're on the other side, listening, watching, feeling, is this true? Is this not? Is this smoke and mirrors and a way to manipulate my reality by lying and keeping yourself intact? Or do you truly believe this and you're sharing what you think is the real deal? It's
Yeah.
so hard. I just want to validate that.
Mm-hmm. It sort of segues out a question, and maybe this is too big of a thing to tackle right now, but I was just curious for someone who is listening to this, watching this, what are the signs that someone may be being cheated on? Maybe they don't have the evidence yet. Maybe they have an intuition or suspicion and they're kind of searching the internet. Like, how would someone know, there's not real hard evidence yet, but they're suspecting something. What are the signs that someone's being cheated on? You guys think?
I think we're all positive. Like, okay, do you want 10 of them? How many you want?
Yeah.
Wendy?
I would start by saying that their behavior changes, and it could be in very subtle ways or big ways. But emotional behavior, physical behavior, the way they're communicating,
Sexual behavior.
sexual behavior
Mhm.
changes.
I'm going to say evasive maneuvers, like pivoting away from answering questions.
Mm.
I'm also getting protective of devices all of a sudden, which is an unusual behavior.
Yeah.
Suddenly the phone is locked, the iPad, and all the locks are changed, and
Passwords, yeah.
yeah, and they don't want to, so suddenly protective of devices.
Mm-hmm. Time-wise disappearing, like unaccounted for time, well, wait, you said you were just going to the grocery store. That was an hour ago just to pick up some ice cream. And you came home, there's no ice cream. What's going on?
Okay, so let me throw a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, but I want to list more first. No wrenches yet. I've got a train of thinking right now.
You do?
So let me add a couple more.
Few more?
Unexplained money. Money is missing. Or you find a pot of cash that you didn't know was the pot of cash. So you come upon, like usually we keep this much in the house, but suddenly there's this much and it's not in a place we normally keep it. Or ATM withdrawals that aren't matching up with a story that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, I was thinking it's like things, it could be weird texts or emails or something that just feel like sort of seems like a blip that just seems strange that come through that is unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
You notice you kind of see those things and then you may question it, but then it gets explained away, or it I don't know. These are the things that seem really strange that are blips.
And intuition. For some folks, their
Yeah.
gut says something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. For other folks, that does not happen at all.
Right.
So, but if it does, if you're one of those people that it does happen, just check it out, pause, watch, be attentive.
What's the monkey wrench, Tim?
All right, Tim. He's been waiting for the wrench,
So you're experiencing all of these things and you are suspicious and think that your partner is having an affair. Turns out that your partner is planning a surprise party for you.
Well, and that
And so how, if this stuff is showing up, how do you step in to figure out what reality is or have that conversation? Or because all those things that you just listed off are going to show up if somebody is doing something that's 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 different out there.
Maybe,
And so
but
it's just how do you not just, I mean, those things are showing up, have the question, be concerned.
Well, I think that it ends with have the question. If something doesn't feel right, you're seeing some of these examples, ask your person. And then if the person maybe smoke and mirrors evasive because there's a surprise party tomorrow, you say, honey, I'm very serious. Like, I'm worried you're having an affair. Like, let them know the stakes of how to answer this question. Because I make up, please, that if someone were to say, honey, I think you're having an affair and I'm really freaking out over here, the other person will say, you know what? Taking care of my person is more important than keeping the secret for tomorrow's surprise party. So, honey, there's actually a party. That's what I want to have happen in the world. That when someone says, hey, I'm in pain and there's a good reason, I don't want that person's false reality being reinforced.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume and wish in the world that when someone says it like that, the other person will come forward and say the truth.
Well, and usually for a surprise party, it's a limited amount of time. It's, a month. But if this is going on after the birthday,
Yeah.
right.
we have a problem.
Plus,
Any-
are you having an affair? I was just thinking, like, I don't know. Usually there's a your gut doesn't say the symptoms might still be very similar, but your gut says something's more dire here. I don't know. It just feels different. The behavior change, it's like the evasive hiding is usually also with defensiveness and some extra, aggression or irritation or irritability. If I'm throwing a surprise party, hopefully I'm not adding that extra level of like pushback and defensiveness or gaslighting, emotional abuse stuff. Hopefully.
So that would be one thing to look out for then, is if you do challenge or question a person about whatever's going on, do they respond with anger, defensive, or no, it's wrong, everything's fine, defensive? So maybe that could be an indicator, maybe not, but I hear you saying that if it's a surprise party, hopefully they're not angry defensive.
Unless they're really stressed and all that. I mean, to Tim's point, there are people that respond differently to these things, but hopefully it's like, yeah, I think what you said, Jeannie, makes sense to me. If it's really like, this is so serious that I think you're cheating on me, and I really need to know. And then, I mean, what's the benefit of a surprise party? Probably is going to be lost when the person is really feeling that level of pain and
as we're talking about this, one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is the importance of trust and acknowledging reality about the relationship. I mean, the ideal conversations we're all talking about feel like conversations where it's like, hey, I trust that if I bring this to my partner and I can have a conversation about it, and that they're going to be honest with me about it, and we're going to figure it out. And I think that there's also something for if you suspect this and you're bringing it to your partner and you don't trust what they're telling you. Why don't you trust what they're telling you? And how long has that dynamic been happening in your relationship?
Yeah.
That you actually don't trust your partner. And what does that mean for you as far as choices going forward?
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. This was a fascinating conversation, at least for me. And also, I just want to say that we welcome your questions, comments, concerns. So if you want to write to us, we will read your question and actually do an episode on it. And so you can email us at conversations.sar@gmail.com.
We're getting this.
Yeah. And in the meantime, if you like this episode, please like it, share it if you feel it's appropriate. If you're not following us, please do so that you know when we have a new episode come out. In the meantime, be safe and we'll see you next time.
And stay committed.
There you go.